we've had this month, but we kind of, bookended it, beginning of the month, end of the month. We do have some really exciting news to announce at this press conference. And so I'm going to ask everybody to hold their questions until the end. And in the Zoom app, there's the raise your hand button feature. So you can do that if you want to ask questions at the end, and I'll go ahead and call on you. But Mayor, go ahead and take it away, and we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much. So it is great to feel like a human again. I wanted to address the question that more than likely most of our viewers are having. I was very transparent last week and announced that I was put in quarantine, and that all coincided with me having migraines and sinus infections. So everybody thought that I really was positive, and I got tested twice because my symptoms were so similar that I had the pleasure, it's not a pleasure, to have the test twice, but thank God I was negative in my testing, and my quarantine, even though my testing was negative, I spoke with the health department, and my quarantine expires tonight. So tomorrow the bird will be free to fly, and I am excited about that I'll be able to leave my house. And I do want to say a few things about COVID and about the health department through this process. The health department was phenomenal. My nurse is called Michelle. I'm not biased, but Michelle was absolutely phenomenal. She called me every single day to check in on me, just to make sure that I was doing okay. She, as I was having my migraines, even though it was not COVID related, she would still, make sure that I was doing well. Every day, a regular check-in. The kindness that these nurses are displaying was absolutely moving. So I am forever grateful for the health department for the wonderful care that they did, which really makes me wonder, when we take a look at the numbers of cases that we have in our community, and last we checked, we had broken the 100 individuals with COVID. It made me wonder how many people Michelle had in her caseload. And it's important for us to remember that as we're managing the COVID pandemic, it's not just for us to think about the hospital. It's also really important for us to think of our friends in the public health area that are really working not only to trace people, but to help them trace individuals, and then to just keep in contact with those individuals, and then the continued care that they're providing for people. So I am forever grateful for those individuals that were working with us in the health department. They were just absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of COVID, I do want to talk about Governor Kelly's decision that as of July 3rd, every single individual is asked to wear a mask in public. And I know that there's a lot of feeling about this, and I'm still trying to understand a lot of what I'm seeing, which is individuals getting extremely upset and coughing at people. That's not happening here in Topeka, not that I know, but or like yelling and getting upset because they're told if a business has a policy of requiring somebody to wear a mask when they're in their business. There's a lot of people getting upset about these things, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about this. A mask is not a political issue. And I'm going to say this again. A mask is not a political issue. A mask is a public health issue. It is there to safeguard not only the health of the individuals that are around you, but also to safeguard your health. And I know that it's uncomfortable. Trust me, I am not happy when I have to wear a mask on my face on a regular basis every day. Although it helps a lot with not having to put makeup on. But here's the deal, guys. A mask, there's more and more studies that are showing that when you wear a mask during the COVID situation, it's shown that it doesn't just protect somebody else, but it also protects you. And it's temporary. It's not something that we're telling you that you have to wear all the time when you're in your home. It's just when you're in contact with your neighbors. And I love the fact that as I was at church this weekend, Pastor Joe was talking about, and by the way, church was via the internet. Pastor Joe was talking about being kind and the goodness of others and the fruit of goodness that comes out of, out of us, um, and the goodness of God in our life. And I know that I'm talking about faith, and I typically don't do this, but I feel that it's important for us to address this. And a mask is nothing but an act of kindness to somebody else. A mask is you being willing to say, I know that I am asymptomatic. I know that I might have not have been in contact with anybody that's COVID positive, but I still choose to take care of somebody else and just protect them for just a little while and be uncomfortable just for a moment, and then go back home and take it off, or get in my car and take it off. You don't have to wear your mask if you're in your car. You don't have to wear your mask if you're working out alone. You don't have to wear your mask if you're in your household with your family members. But here's what we're noticing. The state of Kansas just this week had the highest numbers that we've seen of COVID since the beginning of this pandemic. In our community, we're hitting our highest numbers of what we've seen in COVID. And I think that it's time for us to just say, we want to support the economic recovery. One of the things that was really moving for me that we were talking about is that we often talk about our liberties, but we don't talk about the responsibility that our liberties carry with them. And I want to make sure that we all figure out that, hey, we are not gonna tell you that you have to not go to work. There is no restrictions on the businesses that are open right now. There are no restrictions of what activities you can do out. The group gathering size at this current time is only 45 individuals, which is pretty big, especially as you're considering that 4th of July is coming on board and that you're going to be out there interacting with people. So your liberties are really not being restricted. The only thing that we're asking you to do is to be a little bit more responsible with that liberty that you have of being able to interact with other individuals in your community. So please, I know that there's many of you that are upset. And as a favor, what I'm asking of all of you is to consider that this piece of medical equipment that helps you take care of yourself and others is a temporary removable thing that is just there to help you. So pardon the cough. So wanted to make sure that we touched on that. Because I think it's extremely important that we have that conversation, that we honor that regulation that now the governor has imposed. But I think that it's important that we also talk about why it's so important, and the fact that it's important for us to care for our neighbor. It's not about fear. It's not about fear. It's about the science, and it's about making sure that we take care of each other. The other thing that I want to talk about is the census. There has been a huge push for us to continue with the census numbers. If you have not filled your census, Councilman Padilla, could you turn on your camera and turn on your mic? I'm capitalizing on this because I see you here. But the census in the state of Kansas, I think that we are at a 66% completion rate. And there's other states across the country that are doing like a competition to figure out who can get more individuals to fill out the census. For my friends that are concerned about whether the census will cause any problems, I will tell you, el censo no tiene ninguna responsabilidad con el gobierno federal en el sentido de que no te van a atacar. Puedes llenar el censo, no tienes que dejar saber si eres ciudadano o no. Llena el censo porque es importante para todos nosotros. So it's extremely important that no matter where you're at, that you fill the census. The census doesn't mean that somebody's going to go to your home. It just means that we're counting how many people are there, because there's so many resources that come to our community that are absolutely crucial. So we need everybody to please fill the census. And Councilman Padilla, who I think is here, is our chair for the Census Committee. And he and his team have been doing an amazing job to remind you that you count. You need to be counted. And in Spanish, tú cuentas. So, Councilman Padilla, any words that you want to add to the census?
No, thank you, Mayor, and good morning to everyone. I was kind of caught off guard. I was watching you from my hot tub, so I had to hurry up and get out and put a shirt on. But anyway, no, I'm glad you covered it. Thank you very much, Mayor. I've been working closely with the people from the Census Bureau, and Monique Claudet has also been very helpful from the staff pushing out messages as much as we can. I've put it on my personal Facebook page and also on my uh, election campaign Facebook page, and I encourage everyone on the city council to share those because I've been passing it along to them too, so their constituents can see the information that's coming on a regular basis. Kansas is not doing badly, but we could do much better. It really just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of push. I know people will still have some concerns about it, but you know, at this time with all the medical needs that we have, um, it brings to bear the importance of the numbers and the data that is collected during the census, because that helps bring these resources to Topeka and to our community in Shawnee County. So I encourage everyone. It's a simple act. It takes no time at all. And if you have any questions, there are so many resources available in filling out the census. I've had a few people call me and ask me one or two questions about ethnicity and so forth. So it's not that complicated though, but I thank you very much for Mary to keep that in the forefront because it can get lost in everything else that's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I am so sorry that I interrupted your relaxation time.
That's all right.
So the other thing that I wanted to touch upon is the hard work that our staff has been doing with the budget in the city. I think that our constituents will be very pleased to know that the budget next year does not reflect an increase in the mill levy, even though we knew that we were going to have some significant challenges with meeting all of the expenditures that we were having just because of regular cost of living increases and everything else that just happens as a factor of nature. Prices go up. Employees get raises. It's just a regular thing that occurs. And I wanted to make sure that I reemphasize the great work that City Manager Brent Trout has been doing with Ms. Jessica Lamendola. Our budget will not have a mill levy increase. I think the City Manager can probably talk a little bit about, a little bit more in depth. We had a phenomenal first session today in which Councilman Duncan and Councilman Lesser was a part of my session, in which we went through great depth of a lot of the changes that are being proposed. Right now, it's not a public document in the sense that we are still working in the initial preliminary portions of that budget, but I think it's important that our constituency understands that we are doing a lot of work to make sure that that occurs. We talked about census, we talked about budget, talked about my quarantine, and then finally, but certainly not least, I'm extremely excited to talk about a great program. A few years ago, the Bloomberg Philanthropies Group came up with this amazing program called What Works Cities. And it allows for cities that are interested in participating in these programs to have technical assistance to help them in being more transparent, and not only being more transparent, but it also helps these communities to make sure that they are data-driven organizations, which means that even though we are a political institution that we take feedback from our constituency, it is also extremely important for us to have access to proper data so that we are able to serve our citizens better. And also, by doing that, it improves the information that our governing bodies are able to receive. So initially, when this program started, we were selected to be one of the first participants, and we ended up being in the honorable mentions. And that was pretty cool, right? Because it meant that we were going to have, like I said, technical assistance, and they were going to start working with us throughout time to make sure that we were able to start bettering our reporting processes and making sure that we were serving our constituents fiscally and operationally in the best way possible. Now, I can tell you that to move up into those ranks, because they have from, honorable mentions, bronze, silver, gold, and then they have, I think, a platinum, which I don't even know if there's a city or two in that. Brent is saying no, because it's extremely competitive. And I think that it's important for us to talk about this because we may not always agree on everything, but it's important for our constituents to know how dedicated this team is to ensuring that we are working on evidence-based management. of every single thing. It's not just what we feel, it's about what the data is telling us. And not only that, on being extremely transparent with everything that we do. Some of the initial things that we did for that was having a website in which you are able right now, if you go to our budget page, to drill down line item, even to get to the checkbook of your city, so that you could see where the expenditures are happening. I know that that's not something that a lot of people want to do, but it's there for you. We have transparency with regards now. You could get the Orange Barrel report in which you see what things are happening governmentally with regards to repairs around the community. You're getting these reports that are extremely open, and a lot of municipalities still have not caught up. So much so that out of all of the cities in the nation, there is only 16 cities that have been able to achieve the honor of being a silver level city. And by the way, these cities have enormous amounts of staff to be able to manage the rigor that it takes. They're huge cities, much bigger than ours. It is my distinct honor to say that today we are announcing that the city of Topeka has been put in the silver category of what works cities, which means that we have done a remarkable amount of work with Bloomberg Philanthropies and with all of the resources that they are providing to ensure that we are working transparently and that we are working efficiently based on data to ensure that we are providing the best possible services to our constituents. I'm going to brag on Brent and our team a little bit. We've had over 6 people, I think, in our staff that have participated of some sort of Harvard training. In addition to that, Harvard, the Kennedy School has been working with us in code enforcement. They've been working with us on some of our billing issues. They've been working with us on many things that whenever we have an issue, we've been able to go back to them and ask them to give us some support through this pandemic. The Bloomberg Harvard team has been amazing in helping us, not only us, but also the county, because our health officer is doing the Bloomberg Harvard classes. Dusty Nickel has access to them. Linda Oaks has access to them. City manager has access to them. I have access to all of this. So we are constantly receiving data from Johns Hopkins, from Harvard University, thanks to Bloomberg Philanthropies, that are helping us make decisions for our community, that are evidence-based, and that are things that actually work, because we have a cohort from all around the world that is sharing with us what works and what doesn't. So because of all the hard work of continuing education, which takes a lot of time, but it's so worth it, and the hard work that we've been making of making transitions in the way that we do business, we now are recognized as a silver level city. So Brent, congratulations to you and to the team, and to Sherry Schoonover, that has been a champion in working with all this, in our finance department. Jessica, thank you so much. And all of the other departments that have been working alongside you to make sure that we've been able to receive this honor. So that's all the remarks that I have so far. I'm sorry that I went a little bit long today. Brent, I pass it on to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we're very excited to receive this certification. It's been a long time coming. It's required our staff to go back and look at what we're doing in order to be able to qualify. You know, we thought we had it back a year ago. We were really close. Had to relook at what we were doing, and the staff really went after it. Alyssa and Leah in finance, TSG, which was Hannah and Brandon, excuse me. IT, definitely Sherry has played a major role in this. And then of course our public works and utilities department, with all of the work that they're doing, tracking the data that's being produced and utilizing it in order to be transparent about what we do and how we're doing, and making it available to the public is something that is not done in many cities. And so we're excited to see that this has happened. More work to go. Obviously we want to continue to do this. We didn't do it just to be certified. That's the bonus part of this. We did it in order to make sure the citizens have the information in order to see what we're doing as a government. And so I think that's really the exciting part of it, is that we're more accessible than ever with information and providing that to the citizens. So exciting news, and glad that we're able to now brag on the fact that we were able to accomplish that. So as far as I have other things, the budget is getting close. We're finalizing the document. It may be available today, but expect that tomorrow we will have finalized the release and the information in the budget book. and I'll have that available on our website. We're putting the final touches on that today, and we'll have that available hopefully. As mentioned, the budget is going to meet the priorities of the governing body, not increasing the mill levy rate, which is important in this environment, attacking the priorities of helping police and fire staffing levels, and those types of priorities the governing body has. Continues the efforts that we have with regards to our social service type functions that we do we're helping the police department with behavioral health unit staffing from Vallejo, and with other types of things that we do in order to help the community rather than just relying on law enforcement too. They're giving them the extra types of support that they need to accomplish their goals. Staff is on the 147 individuals that took the furlough. We're looking at just about the halfway point now, going through the shared work program for us. We'll have all of the furloughs completed by July 25th. It's been a challenge to be able to work through that with staffing not being able to work on those furlough days and meeting the requirements that the state has imposed that they have as requirements in their program. But we're making it work. It's been an adjustment, but in the end, it's going to be beneficial to our city, saving us about $194,000, if I remember the number right. So it's beneficial to us. We continue to try and make changes such as that to our current 2020 budget in order to ensure that at the end of the year, we're going to meet the requirements and have a balanced budget. Our numbers that we're looking at for sales tax were good, better than expected for this month of for the month of April. And so for us, we're looking at a flat revenue level for the month of April as far as sales tax. But it's not just sales tax that's affecting us. We're having losses in franchise tax and other areas. And so we're not out of the woods yet. I'm excited that where we've gotten to at this point, it's better than expected to this point. But obviously, as we continue to see that we're not through the COVID crisis, we're not calling it good yet. We're going to keep the changes that we've outlined as far as budget reductions in place in order to continue to move forward throughout the year. We get towards the end of the year and things are looking better. We've identified things that will come back to make changes in the budget in order to take advantage of the original cuts and maybe make some purchases or things out of the general fund that we had identified early in the year but couldn't do, of course, because of the concern over the revenues and where we would end the budget year. Our capital projects continue. We have a full slate of capital projects. If you drive around town, you'll see plenty of places where we're doing work, both on the streets, in our utilities areas. We're excited about how we're making progress this year. We expect it's going to be a good year for us, and being able to improve that infrastructure, improve our pavement condition index, fix some of those water lines that are having water main breaks, and make progress there. We still have much work to do, but as you look at what we've approved in our capital improvement budget for the next 3 years, we're going to be attacking more and more of those water lines and other areas of concern. The last thing I would state is to make sure that people remember as they get into the July 4th holiday, please follow the fireworks discharge rules. There are a lot of individuals, and we expect they're saying more individuals to shoot off fireworks this year than in the past because of some of the cancellations in events. So we just ask people to do it respectfully of their neighbors. The dates are July 3rd and July 4th that people can discharge fireworks. And so please keep that in mind and respect your neighbors. We've been hearing them from time to time in our neighborhood, and it just is important that we do it the right time. People between veterans with PTSD, people with pets that don't respond well. It's just very important that we limit the exposure of that in our neighborhoods. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
If I could add another thing, City Manager.
Sure.
This has been an excellent week for the city of Topeka. I think that Wallet Hub also named us the top 41 city nationwide run.
Yes.
So a lot of great things are happening. And as I was talking about masks, I think that I have told everybody that I am a certified nerd. So make sure that your mask reflects your personality. Here is one of my favorites. And this is Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian. And I know for those of you who are purists, It can't be Baby Yoda because this is after Yoda, but it's okay. But just make sure that you have fun with these. There's nothing wrong with having a mask on. And then finally, I will add a little remark with regards to the fireworks. Absolutely, our veterans are struggling. And sometimes, and they are number one. But I think that another group that suffers a lot, I have Mr. Bilbo Baggins, who has severe anxiety of the fireworks. And I tell you that my poor dog, I sometimes think that he's going to have a heart attack as well, because he gets so nervous. And last night, the fireworks in my neighborhood were so crazy that I felt like it was 4th of July last night. So let's make sure that we're being considerate to our neighbor, and that those that are knowing when the date is going to come are able to then, get earplugs or do whatever they need to do to maintain safety. But it's been kind of crazy in the last few nights. You're right, City Manager. Thank you for mentioning that.
All
That's
right,
my
now.
my mask is the Chiefs.
Okay, for questions, we have Tim first, followed by Danielle.
So on the What Works Cities Award, we are one of 16 cities to earn a silver level. Is there a gold level?
Yes, there is.
There is a gold level, and one of the things that Brent and I have been talking about and working on is supply chain, which would take us, I think, to the next level, which is gold. And it's very time consuming, which is figuring out how to develop a supply chain system that has ranking systems and is open to the community, so that everybody knows who we're using and how we're ranking them, so that we have a system. And I think that if and when we're able to get that, we may be able to continue moving up, which is big. But for many communities that are able to do this, they have a significant supply chain specific department. And we have a small procurement department, and we're doing wonders with them. We're so grateful for our group. And I just also want to add to that, Brent, thank you for mentioning everybody else that was part of that. I just mentioned the people that I interacted with, but that is a team effort, and thank you for mentioning them.
All right, we'll have Danielle followed by Dan.
Good morning, guys. So this is for the mayor or the city manager. With everything going on with COVID, we found in an article that Kansas is one of the kind of positive thing, the second best state dealing with COVID, with of course having a lot of cases, but we're actually one of the second state best overall dealing with how COVID is coming about. So I guess what's your response into knowing that Kansas is doing a well job with handling the situation? And then can you also comment on, of course, it's not really a comfortable situation dealing with the amount of layoffs that you guys have been given, and will there be any more layoffs that you guys have to give?
I'll take the COVID. Brent can take the staffing. I can tell you that I am extremely proud of the collaboration that we have with our state. And I am going to significantly thank the county commission as well, and the incident command team, especially. That incident command team is led by Dusty Nichols, and we have Linda Oakes, Dr. Gianfranco Pezzino, and also myself as the liaison in that team, and everybody else, the volunteers. And I think that the amount of work that we've done to make sure that we are being transparent with the public, a lot of that management is making sure that we've been talking to people on a regular basis. And we have slowed down because the things that we're repeating are the same things, right? But we were super strong going out, communicating with people, making sure that the data was available, the fact that we have a recovery task force, and the state of Kansas is doing all of these things, we're all working in sync, has been remarkable. So thank you to the county for the phenomenal work that you all have been doing alongside the city, and to Governor Kelly. She has done a phenomenal job at making sure that there is this balance of managing, most importantly, life safety, but at the same time, having a really good balance with our economy. which are extremely important, is extremely important as well. And I think that that is where we get that the results that we're having, and the governor has done a tremendous job with that.
Yeah, as far as the as far as the layoffs, right now for the year 2020, we're looking at, we have done and made the changes that I feel we need to at this point. We'll need to continue to monitor what we end up with for revenue numbers to be able to determine if further changes need to be made. So at this point, I think we're in a pretty good spot. Not looking to make any additional changes for the next month or two. We'll obviously evaluate constantly what's happening and make determinations. But, we do that all the time. We're evaluating who's in what positions and what staffing chain we have. And some of those things happen just because we're looking for efficiencies within the department. We'll have people that will move on. And so then we take a look at eliminating positions, and we're always doing that evaluation. But at this point, no additional layoffs. But you will see in the budget that for 2021, we have 32.5 positions that we're planning to eliminate. Some of those are vacant now, some of them are filled. And so we'll be evaluating that through the budget process to determine if at the end of the day, the governing body is comfortable with the recommendations that we have. We have to make some of those changes no matter what in order to actually get our numbers the right way, our budget the right way, in order to be able to have a balanced budget. So that's where we're standing right now.
And this past week in the county, we're seeing a big increase in cases. And with the 4th of July coming up, do you guys have any concerns that this trend is going to keep going up? And are there talks of putting in more restrictions if this trend keeps going?
Dan, that is a great question. Just yesterday, we had a meeting of the Recovery Task Force, and we were talking about the challenges that we're seeing and how we don't want as a team to have to go back. First of all, we know that people don't want to go back. And that's why we are so grateful that Governor Kelly made the decision of ensuring that the masks are required of everybody outside, because we've learned that that is one of the easiest safeguards. We've seen it. We've seen the trends of the numbers go down. So yes, we are concerned. But I can tell you that there is not an appetite for us to keep moving back. Our recovery task force is much more concerned on how do we, now that we have that mandate from the governor, how do we make sure that people are safeguarding themselves and taking care of others so that our businesses and our economy can continue moving. Now, that is notwithstanding that if we were to have a situation in which we have 200 cases and our hospital beds get full, and I'm not saying that 200 is the number, please don't take that as the number. But I'm saying that if we have a significant spike that our public health is not able to manage, if we start having shortage in the supply chain of our PPE, which is our N95 masks, our gowns, our sanitizer, everything that we need to keep people safe, and our hospital beds are full, we are going to have to start making changes. But right now, our hospitals are able to manage, our supply chain is pretty good. What sometimes gets very tight is our public health ability. And I know that Linda is working extremely hard to make sure that she can amplify her public health capacity. So right now we are not looking at this, and we see Governor Kelly's decision as one of those things to help us slow down the spread so that we can continue managing it without having anything be more restrictive.
Okay, we have Tim followed by Dan, and then Danielle.
When the governor's mandate takes effect on Friday, will that cause any changes in the way things are done in city offices and at municipal court regarding what the rules are and how they are enforced in terms of wearing of masks?
I think it will have some impact for us. Right now, for example, in court, it's been advised for people to wear masks. Most are, but I think when you're talking about a public location such as that, it will change and make it more of a mandate. I know that we've had the same thing. People that come in from the public will look at the need to, continue to wear their mask, especially in the public area. A lot of it looks at that when we get into, like if I conduct a meeting with someone from the outside, we're meeting in the first floor conference room. We're looking at that space. It's very large for a small meeting. We can social distance at that point. If we're properly social distance, we can remove our mask. But until we get into that space, moving from the public space to the other, we'll need to encourage and have people wear their masks as part of the idea that in the public spaces, we need to be wearing our masks. When we're in a private location, able to properly social distance and interact only with one or two people, then it'll allow us the freedom to be able to remove our mask. But that's if they want to. Some do not want to because they either that's their choice or they have underlying medical conditions, so they shouldn't. And so we take all of that into consideration. But we'll probably I haven't seen the final information, but I feel that based on the preliminary information I have, we'll likely need to amend how we're going to move forward with the masks, especially in our city buildings and in our court.
And I know this plan is just now coming together, but have there been any talks of how to enforce this mask policy with police? Is there concern that this is going to put extra strain on them and getting more calls about this?
Well, I think, that is going to be a part of judgment and deciding what is an appropriate location to require people to wear their masks and enforcement. I think that it's going to be one of those things of reminder. I think we need to continue to remind people and go down that road that, hey, there's a new policy, new requirement, new recommendation to wear their masks and work forward on that. And I think that's, where we start. And I think as time goes, people understand what the policy is, they will follow it most.
I'm not sure if the police chief is on here, so this is for him or anyone else who was able to answer. But just switching on to the police, has there been any additional meetings on police policy and how things to handle things better when it comes to protest or anything? Have you guys spoken on any additional meetings on police policy?
The chief continues with his strengthening police and community relations committees. I think that one of the things the city manager and I were just talking about before we jumped on this call is the fact that we have been very fortunate as a community to have a chief that has been willing to engage in very deep communication. And that I think that we need to start talking about some of the things that we are already doing. There's a lot of conversation about police policy. And there's a lot of things like, for example, the 8 can wait things, for example, like no chokeholds. Chief already that's not part of our policy. The shooting at a moving vehicle, I think that's not also part of our policy. The no knock warrants, they're not part of our policy. And if you keep going down the line of the things that are being asked, including those things that are pertaining to defunding the police, which we talk often about how difficult of a slogan that is, because it's not really defunding and not having any police officers. What it really means is making sure that we have resources as a community and as a municipality to impact mental health awareness, to ensure that our police officers are not having to respond to things, that we have individuals that are clinically trained to deal with mental health issues, that we have resources in our community that are being utilized, that are going heavily into militarizing police that then could be utilized for supporting Boys and Girls Clubs, for example, and supporting other nonprofits. Our community already is doing a lot of those things. I am excited that Councilman Duncan has brought forth the chokehold thing as a policy, and we're going to have that discussion publicly. And one of the things that city manager and chief and I were actually talking is about taking a look at what are the other things that we could just make policy as well that we're already doing that are going to then remain whether chief is a chief or not. But we wanted to make sure that we sat down with chief and had a good conversation so that then we could figure out a way to craft these policies. So those communications, Danielle, that's a great question, are always ongoing in this community. We've had 2 years of having deep communications with our community. Yes, those conversations are still happening, and chief also making sure that we're having more communication on how we now start making more deep changes into those policies.
So Councilman Duncan has put forth the proposals regarding the chokeholds and the no-knock warrants. Both of those are not currently allowed by Chief Cochran, but he wanted something put in, you know, that would be more long-term. Is the city addressing those two issues separately or the same? And when are our conversations coming next on those issues?
Well, I can answer that. If you look at the preliminary agenda that will come out, well, it's actually the preliminary agenda should already be out. The no-knock warrant item is on the agenda for July 7th as a discussion item. And so we'll be having the discussion. There's a draft resolution ordinance that establishes the change to the no-knock warrant policy, establishes what is acceptable. So that is going to be on there for discussion. The chokehold issue is not right now on the agenda in any way. It's already policy. The other thing that you'll see on the July 7th agenda is that we will be having a presentation on the use of force by the police department and some of the policies. So Chief Cochran will make a presentation on the various types of policies that relate to use of force, responsibilities of officers, responsibilities of supervisors, and situations like that. And then we're looking at some of the other policies and we'll make a presentation on them. In addition, we're also going to have a report from the independent police auditor that will talk about his role, what he's been doing, what he's been seeing, actions that have been taken by him over the last 6 months, and really looking at evaluating all of that information and showing the public where we're at right now and starting the discussion on what we're already doing, so that if there are changes or concerns, the governing body will have all the information, the public will have the information on what we're doing, and then have the discussion about it. Is there something in there in the policies that you're concerned about that we need to look at potentially changing?
Okay, we've got Dan Garrett next.
Yeah, so Topeka Metro is announcing that they are canceling their bike share program next month. I was just wondering if I could get a reaction to losing that cheap mode of transportation in Topeka.
To me, it's heartbreaking. I think that the bike share program is a great equalizer in our community and allows for individuals that I don't think that people notice how many people actually use them. And it may not be used recreationally. That would be like a mass amount of people utilize them, but there's a lot of individuals that use the bikes to get to work. I'm sad that it's going away, and I'm hoping that we could figure out another way of providing alternative transportation in our community.
All right, Tim and then Danielle.
Topeka City Councilwoman Christina Valdivia Alcala proposed 2 weeks ago that the city take action to create a citizens review board regarding situations of questionable actions by police officers. I was wondering what has happened since then. Is this being put together? Is this going to come before the mayor and council?
We have a citizens board that already works with Chief. Brent, do you want to elaborate on that citizens panel that we have?
Sure. I think that you got to remember there's actually a couple of different citizen review panels. The chief has a chief's advisory council where he has citizens that come in on a monthly basis and meet with him, and he goes over the policies and things that are going on in the department, gets their feedback, proposes things, to test the waters to see what kind of reaction the community might have to what's being proposed by the police department. So that's his own internal group, which is made up of citizens across all spectrums of the city. Second thing is the SPCP is still going, and a lot of the things that you're talking about, SPCP has been looking at that. The Strengthening Police Community Partnerships is still going. It's still an organization that is making change and is interacting with the police department on ideas for potential changes. But then you throw into it on top of all of that is that with the independent police auditor, we have what amounts to that individual oversight of the police department to look at how things are being done, both in policies and use of force by individual officers. Whether or not we're going to transition to the other, I don't know. We're still trying to figure out how we eventually have a presentation that talks about what additional option would we consider. It's difficult when you look at what we're already doing to feel like there's a need for that, but the councilwoman has requested it, and so we're going to be doing our due diligence to determine what would that look like. Is this what you're thinking? You only see in civilian oversight typically in police departments that have had decree orders, where the Department of Justice determines that this police department is so broken, so problematic that it needs oversight by civilians. That has only happened in a few cities lately. And in the past, under the Obama administration, there were a number of cities that was the case. That you're not typically seeing that as much anymore because there's so much more transparency. I'm not sure that it's needed, but the request has been made and we'll do our due diligence to review it.
What are some of the, Mayor, you mentioned it earlier that you guys have been hearing some of the concerns just on, police policy on the chokehold. You guys have been having this conversation, but what are some other things that people have been saying in regards into their concerns about the public policy and what we can change? And I know you guys mentioned that on July 7th we are going to be able to have this conversation, but what else will you guys be talking about on July 7th?
But on July 7th, we only have those two issues that we're going to be discussing. But I can tell you what I'm hearing from my community. And one of the difficult and correct exercises as mayor of this community is to be part of the protests. There's been a few more marches that I have not been able to be a part of because I've been under quarantine, and I'm really upset that I wasn't able to participate in any of the Juneteenth events. I always make it a point every year of participating. But I'll tell you that some of the things that we keep hearing, whether it's perception or it's reality, that I think that we must address, is the fact that I want our citizens to understand that the experience for a Black individual in our community is very different than the experience of a Caucasian individual in our community. And whether it's perception or reality, there is a challenged perception with our police department and even in our community. We had with citizens, with just regular citizens, I had the experience of being in Nina's march with Chief Cochran. And one of the individuals that spoke up that really broke my heart was this young lady that said that as she was leaving Walmart with her mother, this group of citizens just drove up and started calling her racial slurs just because she was leaving Walmart with her mom. And those are things that we don't think are happening in our community, and that was not our police department, but still it is a reality that is occurring right here in the city. And the mom and the daughter made sure that they went inside into Walmart to make sure that they were safe. And then they went out and she spoke up. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful how mom handled the situation and told her daughter, you are a queen and you need to remember that you are not these words that people are saying to you. Another thing that I want to make sure that we understand of what the difference is, because when we don't expose ourselves to different experiences, we don't understand what the challenges are. I have the privilege that I go to more than one church. And I go to Fellowship Bible Church, and I also love going to Antioch Baptist Church as well. And I can tell you that Pastor Joe never gets up on the pulpit and he starts talking about how we should behave in public or if we get stopped by a police officer. However, at Antioch, Pastor TD has conversations with our young people on how to stay safe. So whether it's reality of perception, there is a perception of division with the police department and our African-American community, our communities of color. And we are excited of the fact that Chief has been working so hard to make sure that those communications are happening. But here's the deal, we won't be able to touch every single individual and every single family, which means that this is going to be iterative work that we're going to have to continue doing. to help change the perspective of our police department in our community. And we're doing a lot of work, and we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to do. So I think that the work that I keep hearing from our community, aside from these policy changes, and I want to remind everybody that one of the things that I often say is, don't forget that I think it was 1868, we had a policy change and the Emancipation Proclamation, but guess what didn't change? The hearts didn't change. Because a policy is a technical fix. We could talk about all the policies that we want, but if we're not doing the hard work of talking about the hearts, about the issues, and we don't do the hard work to talk about people understanding what empathy, what are the challenges that our Black brothers and sisters are facing, guess what's going to happen? Nothing is going to change. So I am very proud of Chief Cochran, of Brent Trout as our city manager, and our police department for being willing to have those conversations and engaging in the deep understanding of the hard issues, of understanding and listening in to what our communities are feeling, so that then we can start working on a relationship that is extremely challenging to fix. As we all know, we're dealing with people and we're dealing with emotions. And these are things that we don't often talk about because they're not popular. But in this community, we're not shy about talking about these challenges. So I am concerned about the policies, but I can tell you that I'm not as concerned about the policies as I am concerned about our community and everybody understanding the feelings and the heart, so that then we all as a community have a heart of unity, of solidarity, and of justice for each other, in which we understand that yes, we are seeing nationally a lot of challenges with our Black community, and that we all stand together to say that Black lives matter.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't see any more questions, so I will bring our monthly press conference to a close. If you have any additional questions later, you all can feel free to email me, and we will see you in July. Thank you.